Good to see you, boys.
Yeah.
G'day.
What are we talking about today?
Bit of a topical one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Education.
Yeah.
Schooling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Schooling?
Modern day schooling and education.
What a broad topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll dig into it a little bit, and maybe we'll need to come back to it another day because it's one of those big ones, isn't it? You could talk
it's
about it
massive.
all day, and you could attack it from a lot of different angles. But
And it does relate to the modern ancestral man because education started way back when we could communicate, you know, like elders were teaching children how to do things that benefited the community and stuff like that. So,
well, I think if you look at what we're doing here, this is all education. A lot of the stuff that we talk about, I mean, my background, sports science. So, if you're not talking about sports science, people say, stay in your lane. Don't come out of your lane. Well, if you're only ever looking in your lane and only ever looking in sports science, you're never branching out. You're never getting any education. And there's a lot of stuff in sports science that when I did my degree 20 years ago is almost irrelevant now. And if I didn't continue to learn and do my own self-education, then how do you learn?
yeah.
How do you continue to grow? You don't.
it would probably be fair to say if you'd done no reading after your degree 20 years ago, most of that information would now be worth nothing. Would that be fair to say? Like stuff moves along
all the time.
There's always new science coming out. There's always new techniques. Sometimes we realise something that we thought about was wrong. So if anyone thinks they can just get an education and then rest on their laurels forever, education is lifelong, isn't it?
Yeah,
It is. And I think that's the integral part of a good teacher. And, you and I used to be teachers, Jonesy, and I love teaching. And I think a teacher's role is to instill into younger generation the love of learning and also the importance of continual learning and education. So lifelong learning.
I think that's spot on, really. If all you come away with from your education is that, you've probably done pretty well.
And unfortunately,
do your own learning.
Just the ability to find your own information and enjoy doing it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in our Western society, education isn't appreciated in other societies. I mean, you go to some third world countries and the kids want to go to school. They love school. They see the importance of having an education, whereas we're spoiled. We have all these good things in our lives and we take our education opportunities for granted. Kids just go through school, because they have to, sort of thing.
Yeah. Is that a generalisation, though?
It's a generalisation, definitely.
Because I know a lot of people that love school, go to school, think it's great.
Yeah. But I think we sort of, as a society, undermine it a little bit. We don't take it as some other communities or societies see it as such an integral part of their life.
Yeah.
I guess because it's a given, isn't it? Like we legally have to send our kids to school in Australia and in most westernised countries, they have to have some sort of formal education, which can include homeschooling. But because it's something that you have to do, I think sometimes people naturally want to push back on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to go to school.
We have to,
whereas
other communities want to.
You brought out the example of the third world country kids. They want to go to school.
Yes.
They want to get that advantage of education and that knowledge. Whereas for us, it's like, well, you've got to go to school. So
And I guess if the system doesn't fit for you, it can definitely be not a very pleasant place to go to. You're going, it's difficult to learn. Everyone learns differently, and you pigeonholed or, put in a certain box, and it's difficult for you to go to school if it's a hard process. If it's
definitely, mate. Yeah.
If you're a visual learner, it might be different. If you are hands-on, you think you can mechanically do things. It's different. It's a different setup, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, a lot of our modern day schooling is reliant upon kids learning by hearing or comprehending information coming in. And not a lot of kids have that ability. A lot of kids learn by looking at someone do something and then repeating that behaviour.
Yeah.
So that practical hands-on learning. A lot of kids get lost in the whole delivery of instruction and they're missing out on it. They either don't hear it maybe or they don't comprehend the information.
Yeah. I think our public schooling system does really, really well for the people in the middle. Then that's maybe it's a bit wrong. But then if you're struggling or if you're doing really well, maybe those areas sort of get left behind a little.
Yeah, they're quite. Although they're quite happy if you're doing really, really well, they're quite happy to initiate enrichment programs and so on. But if you're really, really struggling, it's harder work.
Yeah.
To deal with those students, and I mean,
I think they're getting better at it now.
Yeah, there are good teachers out there that definitely
absolutely
care for and get programs going for the underachievers.
Yeah,
but sometimes they can be overlooked.
Yeah,
and I think our education in Australia and in Western society is going through a transition, whether that's good or bad. And before we go into it, I'm not bagging teachers or anything. There's great teachers out there, and teaching as a professional, I did it. It's hard work, But I reckon I was teaching in the 90s, and I reckon I saw changes as a phys ed teacher back then, of a decline in kids' activity levels, a decline in the importance within the curriculum of phys ed, and sport and activity, and also even health ed, because I was a health ed minor. I really appreciated teaching kids about their health, and I actually saw that become sort of disregarded as an important topic in the curriculum.
I think maybe it's different for boys and girls, but you look at there was a study in the US done on 45 minutes in the classroom, and they got outside and they ran around, come back in. So I think maybe they did 10 or 15 minutes, just free play. Went outside, ran around, come back in. They got through the curriculum. We can probably talk about curriculum as well, but they got through the curriculum within 3 terms instead of 4. So they learnt a lot better, and the boys especially, they had that, 45 minutes, maybe that's long enough for this is primary school kids, sorry, their brains to be able to then, that's too much, I've got to get out, run around, run it off, come back. Maybe a little bit tired, maybe a bit more focused. So it's just interesting that was a different strategy taken by that classroom teacher. They did a study on it and found that they got through the work 25% quicker.
Mate, I can relate to that, as a student in my 40s. You do 45 minutes of intense study, you're cooked.
Yeah.
You need to go and just shake it off.
I probably it was probably boys and girls, but I'm a boy, so I relate to that as a boy. When I was younger, I didn't really want to sit still for 2 hours, so getting out for 10 or 15 minutes to run around would have been amazing.
Especially as a
Climb
kid,
a tree.
you're going to start daydreaming and stuff, aren't you? After a while, you don't have that intense concentration.
That's right.
It's a learned skill, like concentrating, I reckon.
Even just a simple thing, when I was in primary school, every morning we did the cross-country school run.
Yeah.
And what a great double whammy. Every morning. Our teachers made us go for...
Daily fitness.
Daily fitness.
Yeah.
We'd do a run in the morning, and what a great concept. One, we're getting cardiovascular fitness, where we're out moving, we're out in the sun, fresh air, and exercising. Then it sets us up for a day of our mental capacity is at its best after we've done some exercise. And even the kids come in, they've expended that energy, so their behavioural issues in class are reduced because they're knackered, and all they want to do is just sit there and absorb what the teacher's got to deliver. It's just I don't know whether kids do that anymore.
They do daily fitness.
Do they do? Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to check it.
It would obviously
every
be
day.
School to school would be different, wouldn't it? Because it wouldn't be like a mandated thing from the government to say that they must.
Yeah, no. The difficulty is that some schools aren't large enough to have specialist phys ed teachers or specialist science teachers, so it's the classroom teachers that need to take up that slack. And
is that right?
Yeah, depending on who takes an interest in that, they might do it every day. There might be 3 times a week or but. I don't know if in daily fitness you went with your classroom teacher, didn't you? You didn't go with the phys ed teacher.
We had separate phys ed lessons, but we also, our classroom teacher just did it.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that was a school philosophy, because every year we seem to do that.
Yeah. Maybe there was a bigger emphasis on it.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to get through NAP plan and you got to...
Mate, the schooling, I'm a little bit disillusioned with it at the moment. I see schooling now more so based on ideologies as opposed to factual information, So I don't know whether kids learning times tables or anything these days?
Absolutely.
They are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I mean, I don't know where our national literacy and numeracy standards sit. I did see some information about numeracy and literacy
I think it's dropping, isn't it?
in
The-
Australia.
Yeah, it's gone down. Yeah.
They had some ranges, so 1 to 5. So here we go. So a government website, styleManual.gov.au, in 2022, in Australia, about 44% of adults read at literacy level 1 to 2, which is low. So we're talking a level of 1 to 5. 44% of adults at a level of 1 to 2.
So does that mean
Is
if
that
you're
grade
one, you're bordering
No,
on being...
this is a level. So they've got
Oh,
levels
sorry, okay,
of not grade 1 or grade 2.
Right.
These are levels.
This is
So
A-level.
level 1 is the worst.
lowest.
So,
Yeah.
so would one
Level
be
5.
illiterate or semi-literate?
0.
I don't know, mate. I'd have
Yeah.
to look at it. It's just a low level of literacy.
Yeah. So there wouldn't be many people at 5, I would imagine.
15%
15%.
read at level 4 to 5, which is the highest levels, and 38% of adults read at level 3. Maths was a little bit
So the
different.
highest range was 1 to 2. The highest percentage.
Yeah, 1 to 2, 44% of adults.
Pretty scary.
That was 2022. Maths, I could only find a 2012 survey that showed that same levels. So only 17% of adults were at level 4 to 5. 39% of Australian adults were at level 3.
Wow.
So do the maths there and find out who's on level 1. But
I can't.
yeah,
You're probably at level 1, brother.
Level 1.
yeah, I just don't think, and you look at the curriculum now, and I delved into this, and there's some really good articles. If you have a look at the Institute of Public Affairs website, there's some really good researchers or directors on there. Even there's a lady called Bella D'Abrera, and she posted a really good article which did appear in the Daily Telegraph, saying that the changes to the national curriculum announced by the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority, ACARA, this is back in 2018, should sound some alarm bells for Australian parents. She said that ACARA has promised to add a range of impractical and ideological 21st century skills with a shift to critical and creative thinking. Students will be taught things like how to develop curiosity, imagination, resilience, and self-regulation, how to respect and appreciate the ideas, perspectives, and values of others, and how to care about the well-being of their friends and families, the communities, and the planet. And so to achieve that, the curriculum has come up with three cross-curriculum priorities. Have you heard about this? So the three cross-curriculum priorities are sustainability, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and culture, and Asia and Australia's engagement within Asia. So those three cross-curriculum priorities will be delivered across all core subjects. So you'll even look
for
at...
example, if you're doing maths, it will have a component of cultural studies.
Exactly. So let me read it to you. So if I have a look at Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and culture, and don't get me wrong here, I'm not a racist person or anything like that. I've studied, as my teaching degree, I've studied Aboriginal culture and history, and it's an amazing culture, and it's such an interesting one, and one that I reckon our kids should be learning, because it's a unique culture. It's an amazing culture. It's been and it's a culture relevant to the country that we live in.
Man, they lived in Australia for 100,000 years and they didn't fuck it up.
Man,
That's
exactly.
That's a pretty good effort.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of the key concepts of these cross-curriculum priorities, and particularly this one, does have some fantastic things that I totally agree on about, exposing kids to the culture, the belief systems of the people, the spirituality that they have, their language, the ways of life, social and those sort of issues, their kinship structures and so on. All those things are really good. I think those things are great to teach in a certain subject, so like the humanities or humanity sciences. But like you said there, Smitty, so for example in maths, the learning area there, students can explore connections between representations of number and pattern and how they relate to aspects of counting and relationships of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. Students can investigate time, place, relationships and measurement concepts within Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander context. Through the application and evaluation of statistical data, students can deepen their understanding of the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander concepts. And that makes sense to me. Through evaluation of statistical data, you can learn more about a culture.
Sort of like learning how to actually use statistics. In order to, yeah.
Exactly, and also learn about that culture. But I'm a little bit, that sounds a bit vague to me, like looking at numbers and patterns and how they relate to aspects of counting and relationships of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, and investigating time, place, relationships and measurement concepts. I just think if our numeracy is declining and our literacy is declining, I mean, so let's look at the cross-curriculum priority of sustainability. So sustainability is all about, and I've circled these words: socially just, social justice, global equity and fairness, persuasive skills, advocating effectively for sustainability. All these sort of words.
Social justice is in sustainability?
So yeah, it certainly is. So for example, in maths, so a maths teacher can introduce sustainability. Students can develop the proficiencies of problem solving and reasoning essential for the exploration of sustainability issues and their solutions. Blah, blah, blah. Mathematical understandings and skills are necessary to measure, monitor and quantify change in social, economic and ecological systems over time. And statistical analysis enables the prediction of probable futures based on findings and helps inform decision-making and actions that will lead to preferred futures. In English, students act responsibly and create texts that inform and persuade others to take action for sustainable futures. These sort of subliminal messages being delivered across core subject areas, I think, detract from the importance of that area. So particularly maths and English, my personal belief is that those subjects should just be purely maths and English. Yeah. They don't need to be connected to sustainability. They don't need to be connected to a certain culture or race of people. They just need to be concrete things like reading good novels, learning grammar. Like you look at some of the notes you receive from people or emails. Oh, the terrible. Grammar is. Yeah. And being a teacher, I constantly correct it because it shits me. The spelling.
I give that a D-.
Yeah.
Sentence structure is terrible.
Yeah, spelling is terrible. Handwriting is terrible. Yeah. And look at maths. I reckon my teenage kids would struggle to read their times tables or do division or fractions.
To me, this sort of boils down to an argument between, are our schools there to deliver knowledge or values? Because in my mind, and when I was a kid, I went to school primarily to gain knowledge, and my family and my community around me gave me my values.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that parents were absolved of doing anything, because I think the main reason that I can read and write and do maths is because my parents sat down and spent time with me, and I think every parent should recognise that they need to do that. But I feel like we've fused in, listening to what you've said there, a hell of a lot of values on top of already trying to attain like a certain level of knowledge. And it just seems like, well, for one, we're sort of taking away the parents' job and we're infusing the government narrative of what we think the values should be.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, mate, home is where we learn things of values, leadership, family, community, friendship, that sort of thing. And school is for knowledge.
Yeah.
With a reinforcement of those values.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And like different families have different values. Like some kids will grow up in a very fundamentally Christian household, for example. Now, maybe the school doesn't toe that line, but maybe that's very important to the parents. So, maybe ideally that kid would go to a Christian school, but I'm not sure how much this curriculum sort of permeates through private schools as well. I assume they still have to follow some basic government guidelines because the government has an overarching sort of control of what a school curriculum should look like, doesn't it? So I don't know. I think I just don't believe that schools should be that involved in teaching kids sort of in-depth values. And also, I don't know if we should be burdening particularly younger kids with this amount of social burden of social justice and sustainability, and there's certainly things that you need to learn, but maybe just give them like critical thinking skills and a love of research, and they're going to go and find that on their own later on and integrate it into their life. Like it's let's not make them rote learn what their values are. Yeah. Let's give them the tools to work out what their values are on their own. Yeah, that's what makes the world a great place, is diversity of opinions.
Spot on, mate.
We don't want a group of little lemmings that are all just taught exactly the same thing, because that's a really shit place to live. Yeah. We want a diverse range of opinions, and then we meet in the middle as a society. But
it seems that we're getting this indoctrination from whatever establishment is occurring at university level. These teachers are coming out of university with these dogmatic ideologies, and then they're imparting that onto students, and that's the way to think. That is the way to believe.
Yes.
But that's not the teacher's job. The teacher's job isn't to impart values or ideologies onto young children. It's there to teach content, subject matter. Yep. I love this quote from this lady, Colleen Harkin. She's a research fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, and she said, rather than acting as political thought police, teachers should be imparting knowledge while encouraging critical thinking and instilling a love of lifetime learning. I love that. And these three concepts of cross-curriculum priorities.
Where'd you get those from?
They're from the National Curriculum website.
Yeah. I don't know if they developed the curriculum in WA, though.
This is the national curriculum, and these come from the I'll read you the introduction of the cross-curriculum priorities. The Australian curriculum is designed to meet the needs of students by delivering a relevant, contemporary and engaging curriculum, and builds on educational goals of the Melbourne Declaration. So the Melbourne Declaration identified 3 key areas that needed to be addressed for the benefit of individuals and Australia as a whole. So the 3 areas, or the main goals at the Melbourne Declaration, which was founded in 2008, were 1, Australian schooling promotes equity and excellence. Number 2, all young Australians become successful learners, confident and creative individuals, active and informed citizens. So those 2 goals sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
To achieve those two goals, to enable the delivery of learning area content at the same time as developing knowledge, understanding and skills relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, Asia and Australia's engagement with Asia and or sustainability, incorporation of the priorities will encourage conversations between students, teachers and wider community. So that's where they come up with the 3 cross-curriculum
but
priorities.
Is that who are they? Like, is it a government organisation? Because the School Curriculum and Standards Authority is the one who develops the curriculum in WA. So there's nothing about that on.
But the WA curriculum is based upon the national curriculum. They wouldn't have their own curriculum.
Well, we're different to New South Wales, who are different to Victoria.
Yeah, but they're also governed by a national curriculum.
Are they different, but maybe still within a framework or something like that?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Is that something that goes out to all the curriculums? Because we're different to.
I think regardless, the point we're trying to make here is that certainly times are changing at school, and there is more of a ideological values based sort of stuff creeping in. Whereas perhaps when we were at school in the 70s and 80s, it was more just purely knowledge based.
Yeah. Well, I asked my kids. Pardon?
Is that the point you're trying to make, sort of more or less?
Yeah. Well, I asked my kids who are year 10 and year 11, and they told me that every year of their high school they have looked at Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander studies in certain subject areas, not just humanities or social sciences, but they've also done it in maths, art, English, and so on. Right. A lot of it has been and which I think is great, and I want them to learn about that. And I said, is it always a positive learning experience, or do you learn about negative stuff as well? And they said, it's mostly just about how white people were really racist towards Indigenous Australians. I said, well, but were you also taught about some of the positive things that occurred after colonialisation? Because there were some positive things. I definitely acknowledge that there were negative aspects to it, but there were also positives. But they couldn't expand on that. Also, that sustainability is also mentioned. So climate change, my kids full on believe that the climate is changing and the world is doomed and it's going to end in 20 years.
That's the problem I've got is I don't want to instill fear into my kids. I want them to be knowledgeable, but I don't want them to be scared.
Well, like you said before, you want them to be critical thinkers. You want them to analyse information.
That's the only thing I want out of the education system is for them to be creative, critical thinkers who can work stuff out for themselves. Yep. I've got a big problem with rote learning.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what the answer is. Tell me how to find the answer. I don't want to just I don't want my kid to just get given a page of answers and just remember these. I want them to be able to go through the process of how to work stuff out. And that's the same for your values. Work out what your values are for yourself based on data that you've gained for yourself, plus and minus your experiences from life and what you get from your family and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's a dangerous path when all kids are given the same set of values.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about things like politeness and teamwork, but I'm talking about more sort of social and political ideas.
Yeah.
I think that it should be a broad range.
Yeah.
That's what makes society a good place is
when I asked my kids about the Asian and Australia's involvement in Asia, what they'd learned about that, they said it's all about China.
Mm.
And I don't reckon they could pinpoint Thailand or Vietnam or Cambodia on a map. Whereas those countries are listed in there, and I'm all for, because we live in the Asian region, we need to learn about Asian cultures, how to work with Asian. We need to learn Asian languages like Indonesian, Chinese or Mandarin, whatever. But there just seemed to be, their first thing was China and how Australia relates to China. They haven't done a lot of other Asian topics. So I don't know whether these, and mate, I'll get back to you on that about the cross-cultural curriculum things. And I'm just going by information from, this is 2018, and information released by the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority. So if you have a look at that, Mob, that's an Australian authority.
I'll tell you a very quick story. When I was a younger fella and I was doing my paramedical science degree before I became an AMBO, we did, in our first year, we did a one-semester unit, which was cultural studies. And I thought, that's really relevant because we're going to be going into a wide range of households and you obviously need to understand how to respect different cultures and things like that so that you're not offensive or rude, or you can sort of get your best result and learn how to communicate in an appropriate way. So I was pretty excited about going into it because I didn't have a great understanding of like a wide range of cultures in a significant way. And so we did this 13-week course, one semester at uni. And the entire 13 weeks was on just Australian Indigenous culture. So I got a really in-depth understanding, and it's very fascinating. We went right into the family structure and the history and everything like that. But I came out with a zero understanding of any other culture. I thought, well, they shouldn't really call it cultural studies. It was literally just Indigenous studies. And so when I went into a Middle Eastern house or different Asian cultures or anything like that, I had zero tools. I had to go away and do all the research myself. I really enjoyed doing the Indigenous component of it.
Yeah.
But it would have been a lot more helpful if we had a wide range. And again, I think in any form of education, there's real value in exploring a wide range of ideas.
Yeah.
And any time that we sort of narrow, it's not a good way to have a broad understanding of things.
Yeah. And I guess the best way I'm a lover of travel, and I see the absolute importance of travelling in educating us on different cultures. You can sit in a classroom and learn about a culture, but to go to that country and learn about it and make mistakes and then be taught, no, this is how we do it here, blah blah blah. Sometimes I wonder whether I could have just not sent my kids to school and just taken them around the world? Would they become a more worldly student than they are now? I mean, they go to school, they absorb information, they regurgitate it at a test. What does that measure me? What does that give me?
Well, here's a question for you guys. 2 teachers, so perfect audience. What do you think about homeschooling? If you have a kid who is homeschooled in a good environment where the parents really put in and the kid has an active social life outside, what do you think of it? Hate it? Love it?
I think they would definitely have to have a social aspect to it, because there's definitely that at school.
Because I know a couple of kids who've been exclusively homeschooled and amazing kids.
Yeah.
Like able to walk up confidently to an adult, hold a conversation, play well with kids, knowledgeable. Like my sort of uninformed view of a homeschool kid going back 10 years was like some real weird, like reclusive kid who was really awkward and probably had limited education. And what I've found with kids that I've met is the exact opposite. Really amazing, really, really mature, confident, sort of well-rounded kids. Now, obviously, that's props to those parents because they've done a really good job, and I'm not saying that all homeschool kids would get that same level, but I've definitely seen some really impressive kids come out of homeschooling, and they haven't thrived well when they've tried early on to go to a normal school, and so that's sort of the reason that they've come out.
It's a really complex question.
It's a really complex question, yeah. Like,
there's a lot of factors.
Yep.
You've got to have, well, I don't know, the setup, as in...
Like I've seen the curriculum. I've lived with someone who was homeschooling their daughters for a while. The curriculum, the objective of what they actually have to get through, that because you're still given the curriculum that you're expected to give the kids through your homeschooling.
Yep.
They could usually knock it off in like half a day, and then they could go and do all these other awesome relevant skills that the parent found.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a huge burden of learning. I think there's a lot of wasted time at school where obviously you're trying to deal with a rabble of 30 kids, one teacher.
There's daily fitness. There's
all that sort of stuff.
Pieces,
there's travel to and from
class.
school.
Yeah.
There's all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. Like I used to have a really negative view on it, and I'm glad my daughter goes to school. But for example, I think if a kid was getting really bullied or really having a really rough time at school or had a really different learning style, I think it could be really beneficial.
Yeah. But like I said, as a parent, then you need to sacrifice not working because you can't have, you probably can't have your 6, 7, 8-year-old at home on their own all day. You've got to put in, and that a lot of parents do, and I think it would definitely work. I think there are a lot of parents out there who do a really great job.
Yeah,
and there's other people out there that just we need 2 full-time incomes to pay the bills. And I'm not saying that schools are a babysitting service, but
there's certainly a component where it frees you up to go to work.
But mate, you don't have to have parents doing the homeschooling.
Well, this is one of the things
homeschooling has grown so massively now, and even since the whole COVID thing, people have realised that homeschooling, and I'm all for it. If I had my time again now, my kids were little, I would homeschool, and I would employ a homeschool teacher. I wouldn't do it. I would contribute to it, but I would have a homeschool teacher, and they are available. The homeschool business is massive now.
Well, there's even cooperatives of families now who are sharing the cost of a homeschool teacher with sort of several children. Yeah. So they're almost getting like a school-like experience, but I guess you get a little bit more input into what your child is getting exposed to.
I have a mate and his wife have done homeschooling with their 3 kids, and their 3 kids are beautiful kids and they're intelligent. Yep. We even work with a fella who has homeschooled. He's one of the most smartest dudes I've ever met, but one of the most nicest dudes I've ever met. Yeah, gets along with everyone. I see a lot of benefit for, and particularly when you see stats like Australian classrooms among the least disciplined in the world. According to one report, Australia has ranked 70th out of 77 participating nations for classroom discipline, with Australian students saying their learning time is lost to noise and disorder, meaning they can't work well in class. And often you'll find, and you're a teacher, Jonesy, often you'll find a lot of the time is putting oil on that squeaky wheel. You're dealing with the troublesome kids instead of giving that time to educating the rest of them.
What's the metric of discipline, though?
And homeschooling, it'll be, I don't know, there'd be some sort of...
Sitting down quiet.
Well, how many times kids are reprimanded, violence in schools. I mean, there's also violence has increased in our schools, in the education system, where last year, this is 2018, so 2017, 80% of principals in the ACT reported physical violence. In Western Australia, it was 57% of principals reported physical violence. So, but yeah, back to the homeschooling, Smithy. Mate, I reckon it's a goer.
It's sort of had a resurgence since COVID, hasn't it?
And I also think that a lot of adults are thinking that their kids are going to school getting indoctrinated. Like we just mentioned before, there's all these external curriculum things that are being, so for want of a better word, pushed down their throat, as opposed to just learning content matter. Our kids are being told to become, environmental activists or social justice warriors.
Yeah.
Instead of learning simple maths and reading.
Like, it's a lot of trust to give to a school.
It is.
And maybe if you're not sort of financially able to choose the school your kid goes to, you live in a district, so therefore your kid goes to XYZ public primary school and high school. If that's a really bad school and you have the motivation, I do think homeschooling is a valid option. One thing I'm interested in is some European countries don't allow homeschooling. You physically have to send your kid to school.
Wow.
Germany has had, this might be an old article, I'm not sure if this has changed since COVID. Let me try and find a date. This is from 2019, but in Germany, homeschooling has been illegal since 1919. Now, a family took the German government to court and they lost, basically finding that they had to let their kids attend school. They weren't allowed to homeschool them.
Is Steiner German?
Yeah, I believe so.
Austrian?
Yeah, I believe Austrian German around that time.
So there are
maybe the countries may have shifted geographically because I think he was around sort of the last century.
Maybe that's what came of that. His philosophy was
possibly. I don't know, but I do believe that parents should be able to have a pretty big say in how their kids are getting educated, as long as you're following the rules and you're not just doing nothing. That's not acceptable. Yeah. Your kid has to learn
homeschooling
how to do
definitely
things,
has the ability for kids to be creative and have their own critical thinking.
Yeah, well,
they've got to do their own research.
Exactly.
Like you say, you give them the tools to. The parents are there. They're not absent. You need that. They can. Okay, well, this is what we need to do. How do we solve that problem? And they develop critical thinking and the possibility that parents have friends around and they're interacting with adults a lot more and maybe in a more friendly environment.
Yeah.
Gives the kids more
a
confidence.
safer environment because you're around the home.
Parents and adults.
It's a pretty critical development time for kids growing up. There's a lot of milestones where you really want to hope that things are going well for them. Otherwise, they're going to maybe develop some unhealthy patterns.
I think it's a great idea. As long as you can get the social aspect.
Yeah, if they're playing sport and they're sort of doing play dates and they're doing some hobbies and things like that, I think it would be good. But one thing I noticed about the older kids when I was around some kids that were getting homeschooled is once they're in high school, they're actually given the reins to, like, this is your curriculum, and they give it in a digestible manner. They buy sort of like books and they've got like CDs and things they can go through. But they're essentially...
Might be online now.
Well, probably online. They're essentially like given that by their parents and entrusted, like, this is what you need to achieve.
Yeah.
And they're working out, like, how long is this going to take me? When am I going to do it? And they're essentially going through it by themselves with assistance when they need it. But it's sort of giving them those tools to work out, like the discipline of how you're going to do it, sort of time management skills. The stuff that you would really only learn at work when you're older, because at school, you get given homework. You're like, this has to be done by this date. This has to be done in this class. Whereas if it's on you, you're like, all right, you've got your whole day. You woke up at 8, dinner time 6. We'll get this amount of work done in this time, and you work out how to do it. You're kind of giving the kid that you're allowing them to work out how to plan and
some
how
autonomy
to achieve.
And some responsibility.
They'll fail sometimes, but then they'll work out how to succeed, and you give them some...
The parent-kid relationship, I reckon, would be enhanced as well.
I think so.
It's more of a team rather than an authoritarian parent just saying, we got to go to school, you have to get your homework in. Yeah, I reckon it would completely work. I mean, we did it through COVID, and my kids love school, and we could have kept doing it.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to start at 8 and finish at 5.
Yeah.
And we did big days.
Wow.
And we had a swimming pool, so we did swimming lessons, and we
probably got a bit ahead of the curriculum, eh?
Yeah, and
Well, that's the thing they say.
It was really good.
A lot of people that do the homeschooling say that it's more time effective. So they're actually getting more work done in half a day.
Yes.
And then the kids have got the other half of the day to do some, some sport or some other stuff that's some creativity or homework stuff. And they're done by, early afternoon.
Yeah.
Instead
then
of
you can set them to work at mowing your lawn. And
clean the windows, tidy up the house, cook dinner.
well, they've got plenty of time then, haven't they? Some community work.
Yeah, I'm not being funny, but that's contributing to the family.
Of course.
I mean, I am being funny, but, getting them to everyone in your community contributes, right? So okay, you finish your schooling, now we do.
It's probably more well-rounded, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 And I think, not being a control freak, but as a parent, you've got control of your child's education more so than you just sending them off to school and relying on the school or trusting the school to deliver.
Yeah.
Well, they're not getting like a one-size-fits-all education, are they? Yeah. Like they might be, like you said, a visual learner, or, they might want to read, they might have photographic memory, who knows, like they might.
Exactly.
And that's what's great about being in our society is we have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
We can send our kids to a public school. We can send them to a private school. If we don't like what's going on in a public school, go to a private school. We can go to Steiner, Montessori,
so those alternative schools, they're based on learning. So Montessori's and Steiners, they're based on the kids learning through creativity more so, isn't it? Or more based on...
Yeah, I think there's different milestones depending on different developmental ages.
Right, okay. I'm talking younger ages.
Yes,
Yeah. They're more encouraged to learn by play and stuff like that in the younger years.
Yeah. I heard an interesting podcast with the Senator Malcolm Roberts listening to the other day. He's a very interesting guy, and I respect the fact that he's got alternative views on things. And he was saying he had a Montessori education, and he credits that with a lot of his ability to have critical thinking and also to have the sort of the moral fibre to be able to take that heat of going outside of some of the norms in thinking and challenge some ideas.
Yeah, right.
He thinks that actually came from a Montessori education.
Yeah.
So he thinks it was amazing and was the best thing he could have done.
Yeah.
So I think it really works for some people and it probably doesn't work for others. But it comes back to that thing of like family values, doesn't it? Like some people would absolutely recoil in horror of the idea of a homeschool or a Steiner or a Montessori, and other families would embrace it and be like, that really suits us.
Yeah.
And I just hope we never lose that, because I have heard the discussion that, perhaps homeschooling should be outlawed and stuff like that. I just hope it never comes to that. I hope we always have the option as
to
parents.
Educate.
I mean, it's an amazing time. My daughter's 5 and she goes to kindy, and it's just so amazing to be around her and see her grow and develop. And I'm so glad she goes to kindy and she's got her little friends and she has a lovely time. But at the same time, if she stayed home, that's amazing too. Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't keep her home, because she loves school. But if she stopped loving school and she had big problems, I'd consider homeschooling. I would, or if I was really genuinely unhappy with the education later on.
Yeah. So how would you go if your young child in primary school had a drag queen come and do story time?
Well, that's obviously happening around the world. It's a topical it's a
Where
topical
was that?
issue. I think it's more in the States.
Yeah, more in the States. They do. They got a name for it. It's a drag queen story time or something. But a drag queen comes in.
Like a big fat guy with a beard comes in wearing a dress and tells the kids fairy tales. And there's some YouTube videos you can see, and who knows, but.
That's got to be fairly extreme. That's not happening.
I'll tell you one which is controversial is in some sort of pretty fundamentalist Christian schools that follow Bible scripture. There's been some court cases where some of the Christian schools have not wanted to hire, this is not my opinion, I'm just relaying fact here, but they haven't wanted to hire like transgender teachers and things like that because it sort of goes against their belief system. And I don't have a firm opinion on this yet because I haven't thought heap about it because it hasn't affected me. But I believe they've lost those court cases, and the court said you have to hire these. Again, this is in the United States, but like as a parent, I don't know. Do you get to have a school that you can choose where they will say we are going to follow Bible scripture because we're a religious family? And do you get to have that option to send your kid there, or do we have to have this vanilla thing of every kid has to learn this broad blanket thing where you might have a transgender teacher? Like, I don't know the answer. It's interesting to think about, but should families have the option to be able to say, like, my kid is going to go to this school that's not going to hire trans teachers, or do we forcibly send them to a school where the parents don't believe in it? I don't know the answer, but it's an interesting question, and I don't think it's something that's really being discussed too much in the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of the whole transgender debate. It rears itself at schools, doesn't it? I mean,
I think it's starting to.
Yeah.
I don't remember it as a kid in the 80s.
No, no. I mean, schools are now looking at bringing in toilets to accommodate children who are confused of their gender or haven't, I don't know, determined their gender yet.
It seems like stuff that as a society we're going to obviously be exposed to it more and more, which is fine. I respect everyone's right to choose whatever they want to do and however they want to express themselves. But there is a debate there to be had with, do parents have a say with what their kids are exposed to at what age? Yeah. Or does the government decide that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's maybe when you need to be on the school board.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree with that.
So not even on the board, mate, just an active parent going to parent meetings and so on.
Yeah.
Well, the more...
Have a voice.
If you've got someone on the board and then you've got active parents that get to meetings and say, this is not right, schools listen.
Yeah.
But then, like, if that school, like that example of that Christian school, which did happen in the States, who go to court and then the court says, well, you lose... at what stage do people start saying, well, maybe I'm going to take my kids out of school because not me, because I'm not a fundamentalist Christian, but, maybe if you are a family and that's a deal breaker for you, what do people do? Do they start taking their kids out of school, or does there need to be some level of choice amongst schools where you can make an individual? I'm not talking about discriminating, but, I guess it does sound discriminatory, so I don't know. It's such a hot topic, isn't it? But
like you say, you vote with your dollar. If you don't like that school, you go elsewhere.
If all schools have to follow the same.
But if you're a
system,
school based on certain beliefs and values, and that school has been founded upon those, whether it be religious or what values and beliefs, they've got every right to uphold those values and beliefs. Why do they have to bend backwards and accommodate someone who breaks that moral value or whatever? Why do they have to bend their rules? Why do they have to accommodate the one person? You know what I mean? Like, if that school's been founded upon for centuries based upon a certain decree, then why do they have to bend?
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think there's an easy answer, is there? It's really tough.
Well, why can't they just hire whoever they want?
Yeah, well, I think I was listening to a podcast, I think it was.
If they don't
was it an
want to hire them, they hire them.
Yeah, sorry, we've chosen somebody else for the position. They had more experience.
Yeah, there certainly have been court cases overseas where unsuccessful applicants have taken schools to.
I've applied for jobs at religious schools, but because I'm not overly religious, I haven't got that job.
Yeah,
yeah.
Or do I have the right to go? Hang on, I'm the best teacher. How do you know you're the best teacher?
Yeah,
I don't know. I just went, oh, cool. I'm not good enough. Didn't get the job.
Well, in today's society, you probably have a cause for complaining.
Maybe
everyone's a victim, man.
Well, that's like another whole subject, which I won't obviously go down the rabbit hole too much of. Not talking about this, but more in general, fulfilling quotas versus the best applicant for the job.
Yeah,
and that's permeated through most employment categories in our society now. We all want to be like inclusive and things like that, but then. There's obviously the argument that does the best applicant always get the job? I don't know. I've never been in a position where I'm a hirer, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another big.
Well, in every organisation's attempt to be inclusive, they're actually being exclusive.
And so they should. It's a fine balance, isn't it? And I guess that's why we haven't got it right, because it's so bloody hard.
Yeah, it's a difficult time to navigate.
Bloody tough, but obviously society is changing, and like you said, if you're not happy, vote with your dollar.
Yeah.
But I'm just so grateful that we've got different employment, different.
We do have the ability to choose
different education modalities we can choose, up to and including homeschooling.
Yeah,
I wouldn't rule it out.
Definitely
when
not.
My daughter's older.
Yeah,
because I bloody love her. I love spending time with her, and I think I could teach her some good stuff and be a bit of fun.
Oh, you'd be all right.
Yeah, enough to get by. I'll probably read and write at level 1, so maybe 1.5.
You're above me.
Well, you're a teacher, so you definitely be a 1.
Yeah.
Teachers do a great job. I've got huge respect for teachers, and I think they have an incredibly tough time. Often teachers are left to teach kids values when they haven't got them from home if they come from a bad home life.
Yeah.
And I think they get difficult conditions, and I don't think they get paid enough. So
Definitely.
They get overcrowded classrooms. You know, I think
pay
that's
peanuts, get monkeys. You know, if you want to start paying really top dollar.
If you want to talk about that, that I reckon is the biggest thing. If you talk to a lot of teachers, if you had a classroom of 20 instead of 30 or 33, I think 33 is a max or whatever, maybe 36. If you had a classroom of 20, that discipline from where ranked 70 goes from 70 way higher because there's less kids to deal with.
Yeah.
But then the government's got to hire more teachers. They've got to have more classrooms, more rooms.
It's always about the dollar, isn't it? It's like the nursing ratios, patient to nurse ratios and things like that. And the nurses in WA have just fought to get better ratios so they can provide better care. Yep. We're always trying to scrimp and save on health and education, which is bloody crazy. They're the two things that we should be going large on.
15 to 20 in your classroom and the outcomes will be completely different.
Oh, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I don't need faster internet or bloody, more mobile phone towers. I need good health system, good education system. That's like the foundation of a good society.
Yeah.
I've seen the health system and it's knackered. It's real bad. And you guys have seen the education system, and I'm sure you've seen a decline in it in recent years as the ratios and stuff have gotten worse.
Yeah.
It's a shame. We can do better than that in a first world country like Australia.
Yeah, I reckon. It'd be interesting to find out countries and their education performances with small class sizes.
Yeah. I don't know who.
I sort of straight away think of Scandinavia.
I was going to say they always win. Scandinavians
They always seem to have their shit together.
Yeah.
It might be interesting to see what their class size is.
Yeah.
Probably got a very rich culture too, I imagine. Like a lot of European countries have a big emphasis on their culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't know.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Probably just scratch the surface here a lot.
Yeah, could probably talk about that for a bit longer.
Rambled a bit, but it's an important one. I mean, there's nothing more important than your kids' education.
That's right, yeah. It's a big topic.
Huge.
And I'll take it on notice, Chris. I'll get back to you next week about the cross curriculum.
I was just thinking because I hadn't really heard of those, but it's interesting that your kids had heard of those things. And I mean, I know my kids talk about it. I didn't know in the sense of it's in maths and those kind of things. It makes sense.
Well, I don't think you would
subjects.
be told about it. They're subtle inclusions into the curriculum, and they're a broad context within those core subjects that are delivered via those core subjects. It's sort of like a subliminal messages, within.
It's maybe a focus of, Anyway,
But there is a place for it. There's a great place for us to know about, how we fit in with the Asian region. There's a great place for sustainability. We live in a planet that we've got to look after. And there's a great place to understand the culture that we share this beautiful country with.
There's absolutely no doubt that the sustainability aspect is quite a big topic at the moment. We could probably talk about that one the future.
Yeah, it's just where do you draw the line,
Yep.
Well, how much is too much?
Yeah.
Only got a certain amount of hours in the day and a certain amount of years, and you're preparing your kids for perhaps further education or the workforce. So if you've got a certain amount of time, you can learn a certain amount of things.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that the humans are damaging the planet.
Oh, hugely.
Well, hang on, mate. No.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we can talk about this in another podcast. Humans are having an impact on the planet, but climate change is a natural phenomena. It occurs naturally over time.
Let's dig into that.
Yeah, that's another one.
Soon.
All right.
And we might have a range of opinions on that.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't tell me that humans aren't damaging the planet.
They're having it. Well, they're not.
They're having an impact on the planet.
Of course they are. Of course we are, because there's a lot of us, by way of manufacturing, processing, and stuff like that.
Well, that's exactly right. You've got climate change, then you've got everything else. You got chemicals, you got plastics, you got deforestation, you got air pollution, you got desoiling. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. That's one to look forward to.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Should we get our air guitars ready for a bit of a guitar riff?
Yep. Get over to modernancestral@gmail. Flick us an email or on the Instagram, Modern Ancestral Man. Come and have a chat. Engage.
Always good to see you, boys.
Yep. Good stuff, fellas.
See you, lads.
Air guitar.
See you next time.